So in the books, Littlefinger tells Sansa Stark, yeah, I was behind the death of Joffrey. I orchestrated the whole thing. Very similar to what we saw on Game of Thrones. And he says the Tyrells, they were in on it. But just to be devil's advocate, since when do we put any faith, any stock in the words of Littlefinger? He is one of, if not the most untrustworthy people around. And because we don't have a POV from Littlefinger himself revealing what he really thinks, his internal monologue, we have to trust his word. And that doesn't sit right with me. How do we know he's not lying? Now, there is a very good case for Littlefinger and the Tyrells to be behind what happened to Joffrey. He was a total menace and Tommen was a much easier prospect. So let's marry Marjorie to him. Perfect. However, I wonder if there's more to the story. Is Littlefinger playing an even bigger game? Littlefinger leads Sansa along this path saying, you know, maybe it was the person that was fiddling with your necklace. And Sansa puts two and two together and is like, no, not Olenna. And Littlefinger says, I love the juice, but I loathe the sticky fingers. Clean hands, Sansa. Whatever you do, make certain your hands are clean. In other words, I love the mess, but I don't want it traced back to me. So when it comes to Joffrey's death and that moment, I mean, everyone was cheering. I'm starting to think, and this could be totally off base, it could be, you know, tinfoil hat theory. However, I'm starting to think, yeah, he was in cahoots with the Tyrells, but also, what if there was more to this plan and Littlefinger has not yet revealed that other part to Sansa? What better way to cause chaos than to include one house, but actually have another house in the background? I'm thinking of the Martells. Firstly, no one has more cause to hate the Lannisters and the Baratheons than the Martells. I think Littlefinger might have been using the Tyrells, but then he had the Martells in the background. Let's get rid of Joffrey, we can marry Tommen to Marjorie, and if needs be, we can get rid of Tommen, we can get rid of Marjorie, and that could clear a path for Myrcella, who is betrothed to none other than Trystane Martell. I'm just saying, what if this was an idea that Littlefinger floated to the Martells? Like, let me use the Tyrells, and people, if they ever do find out, they'll think it was them. They'll think that's where the story ends. They'll never trace it back to you guys. I also think if that was the truth, I think at some point Littlefinger would betray the Martells as well. He's just using everybody. I just can't shake this idea. It's like at the back of my head, I feel like there's just more to the story. I feel like when Littlefinger was dropping these breadcrumbs for Sansa, he was being very deliberate and he was guiding her to make these connections, so she was putting it together. But I just feel like, knowing Littlefinger as we do, there's probably a lot more to the story that he's not sharing with Sansa. And Doran Martell, out of his own mouth, has said, ever since I heard what the Lannisters did to my sister Elia, to her children, I have been plotting their revenge. No one thinks I'm doing anything, but I am. Another theory that kind of floats around this is that Oberyn Martell poisoned Tywin Lannister, and that the reason Tywin was on the toilet shitting his life out was because he'd ingested some kind of poison. Poisons were Oberyn's thing. He knew a lot about them. That could happen. That could have been a thing. I can't rule it out. And that is where Tyrion found his father, and that was the end of Tywin. I just feel like the Martells have their hands in lots of pies. They've got a lot of schemes going on. They're reaching out to Viserys and Daenerys in Essos. I feel like they've got a lot of contingency plans. Okay, if this one doesn't work, it's okay. We've got this other scheme that we've been working on. All in all, we don't know the truth of what happened to Joffrey. We just have Littlefinger's word to go on. I can see him being involved. I can see the Tyrells being involved. They both have motive. But I just can't rule the Martells out. I feel like they were part B of Littlefinger's plan. And I feel like there was probably a part C, D, E and F. It's just not happened yet. But it started with the death of Joffrey.